People are not going to sell a $500,000 home and move into a 1,200 square foot home. They're just not going to. It's 1,200 is too small.
Yeah.
I mean, I think over in Coldwater subdivision, I think our smallest is about 17. We've got bigger lots, but I can see where Jeff's coming from on this. So.
Are you still open for public comments? You never closed the public hearing.
Yeah, we'll have some. We'll
Sure.
entertain some, yeah.
Yeah, we're not in a public hearing.
Yeah, we
can have
did
more
open.
comments.
We had open comments.
Yeah, we did say we could have open comments. So.
Is that a yes?
Yeah. Race.
Brenda Ashdown, 193 East Pleasant View Drive. I don't live close to there. I just have some questions that I don't understand. First of all, the house I live in is 1,000 square feet. 1,200 for me would be an increase.
Improvement.
My question is, if you reduce that front to only having 5 feet from the garage to the sidewalk, you don't have room to park a car.
It'd be the front of the house.
Be the front of the house, not the garage.
You're right. So I guess what I'm not understanding is you have the sidewalk, which he said is 5 feet. And then he wants it reduced from another, then it would only be 5 feet to the front of the house, right? So that would be the 10 feet that he requests.
Correct.
But the garage is set back.
Oh, the garage is, oh, see, and I don't see that. So how much, I can see it here now, thank you. So does that give enough space to park a car in the driveway if I'm going to visit this home and not be hanging out the sidewalk?
That's where Rob mentioned that we need to have the 20 feet. So if the garage is set back 10 feet from the front of the house,
Okay,
then they would. But if their plan doesn't have it set back, and that's kind of what Jeff was saying on this particular plan, the garage couldn't move back farther because they restricted in the back. But there are two plans, I think you said, Jeff, that the garage was set back 10 feet from the front of the house.
okay.
So it would work on two of them.
Only on two plans.
That they've shown so far.
So if you did the 15 feet in the back instead of the 20, how much would that still give you the 15 in the front? From the sidewalk, back of the sidewalk?
Well, that's what they're debating,
Yeah.
is what is the dimension there? The way it's set up now is it's 15 feet, I'm trusting what he's saying here. You have 5 feet of sidewalk, and then you have 10 feet of building, which is 15 feet.
So on the houses that the garage doesn't set back, that still gives you 10 feet, that would be enough to park a car, right? No?
The parking is not gonna change no matter what setbacks there are for the buildings. So this is the dimension for the pad going into the garage. So what we're talking about is, where is the building setback? 5 feet or is it 10 feet?
Okay.
So if you say 10 feet and you add 5, you get 15. If you do 5 and 5, you get 10.
Mm-hmm.
So just, it's a policy decision for the council.
But I guess my question is then, if it is changed to 10, does that still give you enough room to park a car in the driveway?
It would depending on which
The plan.
which plan. And then if we went 15 feet in the back and only did
Everything would shift back.
and then 10 feet from the property line, that would give them the total of 20 feet, which they're requesting.
From the front, so that,
But you just move everything kind of forward. But his plans are restrictive because if his plan only has a 5-foot setback for the garage, then he wouldn't have that total 20-foot distance that he needs for parking.
okay,
So it's
okay.
that's where it's kind of a tough decision, in the sense that he would have to modify plans,
Okay.
Am I
Like
right,
I said,
Jeff?
I don't live there, I'm not close, but I would think, 5 feet isn't a whole lot, but it's more than 10 feet if you gave him 15 in the back, and maybe did a little bit of a compromise that way, because you still, I definitely don't make smaller roads definitely don't make thinner roads, because you've got a few cottages and you've got several townhomes. You're going to have a lot more people in there with cars in the townhomes than the cottages. You need to have big roads. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Brent Call, 835 East, or, excuse me, yeah, 835, what's our address? 835 East, 2100 North, sorry. First a question and then maybe a comment depending on the answer to the question. Are the utilities and the infrastructure already in on these lots? Have they already put utilities and stuff in? Oh, they are, okay. I was going to suggest why not just change the size of the lots, make them wider for a larger buildable area, but I guess if we've already stubbed in all the utilities, then we're past that point. I'm going to speak on behalf of Jonathan here. We've actually been corresponding with him. So for Jonathan Call. The good-looking one.
He's not even paying attention.
Michelle texted him, said they're working on a compromise of 15 feet, but the builder is having issues with the floor plans not fitting on the lot. The builder, in my opinion, Michelle's opinion, is trying hard. Jonathan responded, I think he is too. I guess it doesn't matter too much as long as they never put a road through 300 East. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, how can we make this work? What do we need to do? Let's just get this done.
Susan Clement, 668 East, 3125 North, speaking as a 55-plus person. And I've walked around North Ogden a lot with dogs and without dogs. I'm questioning that we need sidewalks on both sides. I know Legacy only has it on one side. I don't use the sidewalks a lot. They don't always get cleaned off, the ice and the snow, which is really irritating. And there are low hanging branches, and there are bushes that cover some of them, half of the sidewalk. So sidewalks are wonderful, and especially close to schools, they're really great. I can't see in this area that it's going to be as necessary to have sidewalks on both sides of the street. Just a thought.
Thank you for your comment.
So I don't know if this would help. As I was listening and thinking, and I really appreciate your time. I mean, I can tell you're deliberating. I appreciate that. Is there something we can do landscape-wise, either in our backyards or work with the neighbors and do in their backyards to create some type of a screening to make everybody feel more comfortable that we're so close? If we committed so many thousands of dollars, $2,000-3,000 per lot for the 9 lots or the 5 or 6 lots that are across the street, and help them with some buffering on trees or whatever, would that help ease the mind to let us go down to the 10 feet?
You're hearing crickets, aren't you?
Should be smelling smoke.
I'm not opposed to the 10-foot, but like I said, I got a noodle on it a little bit. I'm just still trying to work it through. Particularly lots 33, 34, 35, I'm not opposed to that at all. The ones on the south side, I'm not opposed. It's the ones that are right, from 23 to 32 is ones but I've seen them done in such classy ways. Again, St. George area is the only place I've seen them at. So I've seen them done very well. I like the idea of trees and doing something there for the neighbors to the north. But you're also gonna have a 6-foot high solid vinyl fence, right?
Vinyl fence, and I would suggest, I'm happy to put the landscaping on my side, but I would suggest if they're open to it, putting the landscaping on their side, and letting them use that money how they choose and how they want. But if they're like, no, I don't want to disturb my property, then we would put it on our side just to create a screen and a buffer. A sound deadener. I mean, bushes help to deaden sound and communication back and forth. I just know for us that the difference sales price and marketability between a 1,200 and a 1,500 is worth me, or 1,700 even, is worth me throwing $2,000 or $3,000 per lot into improving the aesthetics between those two homes. And so it's a suggestion.
So let me ask you this. Phil's suggestion was, to have measuring from the property line. So that gives you 5 more feet in the front. Would you have to modify drawings extensively to make that work too? If, let's say, we gave you the extra 5 feet and then did 15 in the feet, that you're getting your 20 feet that you requested.
Right.
Basically, would that?
Everything helps. It still doesn't give me the total 10 feet on that garage because my garage can't move. And so it's giving me 5 more feet on the garage because I'm going from 20 to 15 in the rear. But I can't pull that garage forward the same 5 feet that I can pull the other side of the home forward. So there's still a restriction of the space that's behind the garage.
So if you kept the garage and you'd gain 5 more feet on the house, which encroaches into the 15 feet, is what you're basically saying.
Now the drawings that you're looking at are already drawn to the 10 foot, and so when we talk about modifying, we're talking about having to pull those back up the 5 feet behind the garage space. Modifying the plans is not my concern. I mean, it's a couple $1,000s and a month's worth of time to redo that. That's not my concern. My concern is marketability and putting a good product out there. So
maybe we'd force you to do some drawings that were even cooler. You could change the names.
So
the Turner floor plan. So, council, I'm okay with the south lots going 10 foot and doing what, and I'm okay with it measuring from the property line. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the lots 33, 34, and 35 doing that. I'm just not sure what to do on the others. And I'm not opposed to doing what the Planning Commission recommends, 15. I'm okay with that too. So that's kind of where I'm sitting right now. Maybe Meg will change my mind.
I am very persuasive. Meg Sanders, 2915 North, 875 East, North Ogden. So, the developer, you're the developer, builder? The builder. Okay, the builder begged. And from what I understood, he spoke with 9 residents. 5 said they were fine with it. Some weren't sure. Now you guys are saying, well, let's compromise with the developer. What about those people that weren't for this? Well, those homeowners that have already purchased their home with certain things in mind, and now we're going to meet the needs of the builder. So somebody that lives in their home, if somebody came to me and said, our plans weren't exactly right, now we're making a compromise, and even though you're not for it, we're going to do it. So that's my first concern. Second thing is, from what I understand, this went through the Planning Commission. They made recommendations. It wasn't that long ago, another developer builder came that wanted to change, not the stucco one, that's old news, but another one came and we're like, no, we have certain things in place. But here we're all discussing compromising and changing something that we already have in place, something that's already been recommended by the Planning Commission. So I'm trying to understand, so someone else comes along and they want to change the setbacks and they want to change, how do you say, well, you couldn't, but these guys could? So that's, I don't know if I see consistency as far as meeting what the residents that we already are supposed to be serving, and now we're trying to take care of the builder and compromise with the builder. What about those other homeowners that might not be for this?
Thank you for your comment.
Kevin Burns, 795 East, 1925 North. A noodler is a great description. Very, very difficult. Councilmember Stoker, I think, made the best comment that we've heard tonight, and that is we're trying to get it right for future development. And so I think it's important that you take your time to get it right. I know the builder's in a hurry. He wants to build. But there's a lot of things in the future that are dependent on the decision you're about to make. So I would just ask that you take time to get it right. Because, as I say, there's no wrong time to do the right thing. So please take your time and get this one right for future development. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
I was inclined to say we need to think about this one earlier too, so that's one of those, say I got a noodle on it. Still noodling.
Well, I'm not ready to make a decision. I still, good points made in, from homeowners that we've heard from Kuwait. I didn't realize you were that Jonathan Call's parents. But good comments from Meg and others as well, that, and especially as Kevin mentioned, Councilwoman Stoker's comments, that we get it right. Too much noodle for me tonight, Carl, to be comfortable making a decision.
And just because I'm a builder, but just in defense of the builder, I get the impression he wants to do it right, and when he bought it, he bought something that he thought was different than what he got, and he's trying to make it work, and he's trying to help us figure out to help make it work, and so I appreciate that. I appreciate him coming in with these ideas and how he can make it work and helping us understand the problem. But again, it was something that this is the drawing, here's the development, these will work, and so we just took some assumptions there. So as a city council, when we approved this whole plot and stuff, so yeah, I'm a thinker on this one a little bit still.
Well, and I'm with you, Carl, that I think lots 33 through 35, the west lots and the south lots, I don't necessarily have an issue with, because those don't affect anybody in the single-family homes. It's 32 through 26. Is it 26, John?
23.
23 on that west side, the east side.
Yeah.
That's where I have the biggest concern.
Because the other ones don't affect other residents.
Right.
So.
So what does that do to can you shift plans and sizes to get the biggers on the other side and the smaller?
Yeah, I would.
Those single homes or
I would say and I know the sake of time is crucial to us. We've owned the property for a year. Interest has been accruing for that entire year. And so for the sake of moving forward, if everybody's comfortable, I could work with what Councilman Turner suggested and Councilman Swanson is go from 33, I think, all the way around and go to a 10-foot front and rear, and then stay at 15 feet on the ones that are backing up against the north home. I can make that work. We'll go back and come up with 3 or 4 new plans that would fit behind those houses, and get them as big as we possibly can, but it would allow me to put some bigger homes down around the other side. So we would make that work if we could get that.
15 feet, not 20 feet.
Yeah, 20 feet is going to be very tough, extremely tough on that north side. Like I say, when you're dealing with 77 feet minus the sidewalk, it's just really tough.
We do have the buffer then with the canal.
Well, we do on the west, not on the north. We don't. So I will leave it at that and let you guys make your decision. Thank you.
So with that being said, I'm kind of in favor of going from 33 all the way around to the on the, from lot 33 all the way around to doing the 10 and 10, and then from 23 to 32, 15 in the back and the 10 in the front. So I'd be okay with that. Based on, because Jeff says he can make that work, it sounds to me like that's a good compromise, and Mr. Call that lives over in that area said that he wouldn't necessarily be happy, that he understands the compromise, and some of the other residents, it seems like that's kind of my thought. But I could be persuaded, maybe.
So, Council, the way this will need to happen for purposes of the development agreement is if you are feeling a certain way on certain lots, for example, we still need to bring back a new Exhibit L to the original master agreement that would show the setback amendments. So this is going to come back to you for that final approval to that development agreement anyways. So I think you can make a motion, give the developer some guidance, but you could also leave a few items to be discussed and inserted into that exhibit if you wanted to do it that way. Or we could just, I'm just saying that there has to be at least one more meeting, and if there's not enough direction to help us prepare for that meeting, then there'll need to be two more. That's all I'm trying to say.
What do you think, Severin?
I agree with your proposal.
So, John, this wouldn't be a motion then, right? This would be just a thought process or direction for the staff?
So the car wash is a good example. There was an official motion by the city council to allow it in the zone, but then we're actually doing the agreement tonight. So I still think, you don't have to give a motion for anything. It just would help staff have some, and probably the developer have some confidence in what to expect at the next meeting when the development agreement portion, which is the second piece of the pie that needs to be done as well. So.
Okay, so then I am going to propose that from lot 33 heading west along the south side, and I don't know what the lot numbers are, John, if you want me to specify from lot 33 all the way around to lot 82, is that correct?
Yes.
Those lots, I'd move that or propose that we go with a 10-foot setback in the rear and in the front. And then from lot 32 to 23, the 10-foot setback in the front with a 15-foot setback in the rear to be brought back to us.
So I think the lots you're talking about are 33 through 35 and 82 through 93. So they
okay, that makes sense. Yes, yeah, that's so. Point of clarification of what John said. So, does that make sense on my thought, my proposal? Is that, I need to make that a motion? That's my motion then? Is that right, John?
That is a motion, yes.
All right.
I second it.
Okay.
Motion has been made to get these numbers again. 82 to 93 will be 10 foot
and then 33 through 35.
33 through 35.
And that's 10 foot from the rear and from the front.
Well, that's 10 and 15, isn't it? 10
And then from
15
32 to 20, or 23 to 32 will be 10 foot in the front and 15 foot in the back.
Clarify where that 10 in the front is measured from.
From property line.
I moved it that 10 foot in the front is from property line. But we need to maintain a 20-foot distance for the garage.
So 23 through 33 will be 10 and 10?
23 through 32 will be 10 foot from property line to the front of the building and 15 feet in the back.
Okay.
Are we all confused?
Almost. 33 to 35?
Is 10 foot in the front and 10 foot in the rear.
Did we talk about 82 through 93, or is that?
And that's 10 foot from the front, 10 foot from the rear. Measured from property line in the front.
Well, the motion's been made, then 82 to 93 would be 10 and 10, 33 to 35 would be 10 and 10, and 23 to 32 will be 10 and 15. Correct?
Correct. 10 in the front, 15 in the rear.
That motion been made by Councilman Turner and seconded by Councilman Severing.
Yes.
Begin the voting with Councilman.
Some additional discussion.
Yes.
I can't do the 15 feet. You know, the conversations I've had with Jonathan this week via messenger, I feel like it's a reluctant acceptance. And I think good points have been made by Cheryl and members of the community that we made an agreement for those folks that have those single-family homes. So, I mean,
You're talking 20 on which group, or all of them?
I'm talking just 32 through 23. I'm okay with 33 through 35, 82 through 93. That I'm fine with. The 32 through 23, for sake of keeping the commitment that we made to those residents repeatedly. It wasn't just once, it was repeatedly. I'd say I would have to vote no on that motion if we were voting. I would then follow it with another motion. I guess I could do a substitute motion, couldn't I? If you want to vote on your motion, and then I can do something else if it. Well,
I would, it's up to the, I mean, we have a motion and a second on board, we have to vote on it, or,
well, if I do a substitute, then we have to vote on the substitute first, correct? How does that work? I can't. Robert's rules. Whoever Robert was, that guy's a nut.
Yeah. You vote on whether or not the substitute motion replaces the initial motion, and then you vote on whether or not to adopt the substitute motion, assuming it does replace the original motion.
Okay, so I'll make the substitute motion then, that 33 through 35 are 10 and 10, 82 through 93 are 10 and 10. Front setbacks measured from property line, not back of sidewalk. That 32 through 23 are 10 and 20, with the front setback measured from property line, not back of sidewalk.
Okay, that motion has been made as a substitute motion.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Stoker.
So now you will vote on which motion you will take the next vote on. So
No, say that again?
So a yes vote for the substitute motion then replaces the original motion with the substitute motion as the motion that's on the floor, and then the council would vote on whether or not to pass the substitute motion. Does that make sense? So you'll have two votes.
So
Yep.
we're voting whether or not to keep the substitute motion.
Right.
And make it primary.
Right.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Is that right, Rob? I mean, you've been in a whole lot more meetings.
It's Robert's rules. So,
I want to meet this Robert.
Okay, then we're voting now on the substitute motion. Is that correct, John?
Whether or not,
voting at the substitute motion is what we want.
Okay. Begin the voting with Councilman,
Yeah.
Councilman Barker.
Well, thanks. Yes.
Councilman Severing.
And again, just for confirmation, we're voting on the substitute proposition.
to keep it.
To keep it.
So
To keep it and make it we're voting whether
Vote
we.
again.
No.
Okay. Councilman Turner.
No.
Councilwoman Stoker.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Oh,
No.
Phil has to
You haven't,
vote.
I haven't voted yet.
You can still say no to his own
Sorry.
motion.
4-4 right now.
You guys are confusing me.
2-2.
Let's go ahead.
Math, you know. Yes.
Okay, substitute motion passes.
So now we have to vote on the substitute motion being the.
Yeah, so now the only motion that's before the council right now is the substitute motion. And now you would vote on whether or not to approve that motion. Yeah.
And so just a,
and I looked it up real quick, and that we're following.
Does it show a picture of Robert in there?
It does not.
So
but
on comments on that before we vote on this is the reason I voted no is because I think the 15 is fine. That's other than that, everything else I'm cool with. I'm fine with, but I just like I said I was fine with my motion being 15. So
Really?
yep, I was fine with that. So, but now we have a new motion. 20 feet is what the motion is. So now we vote again.
Okay. We had a motion and a second. Then we'll begin the voting with Councilman Severie.
No.
Councilman Turner.
I will actually vote yes on the motion because that's one that's on board, and I'm okay with that. I still thought the 15 was better.
Councilwoman Stoker.
Yes.
Councilman Swanson.
Yes.
Councilman Barker.
Yes.
Motion passes. So it would be 10-10 and 10-10
And he said
and
it was
10
you.
50 or 10-20.
10-20.
Thank you, Council.
And Mayor, if I could add, Brenda, I think your idea about sidewalk being only on one side and those cottages, who was that? I thought that was Brenda. Oh, sorry, the other walker. Saw you out with your dogs the other day. I think that would be something to consider.
Can we consider that?
Well, not tonight, because it's not on the agenda. Look at Rob. Don't shoot me, Rob. I have enough targets on me.
We'll do what you want us to do, Council.
Before we eliminate sidewalks, we need to make sure we look at how it is. For
Oh, absolutely.
The trails and everything else, if that's even going to be considered. I personally like sidewalks, so. Sorry, Mrs. Clements, I like sidewalks.
Okay.
Okay.
That was a noodler.
Maybe I learned some new Robert Rules of Orders this evening.
Robert rules of swearing is what's going to start causing us to do.
Next item is item 10.
Robert's rules.
Yes.
So there was three things that we were voting on. That was, well, we got two of them, but the third one was the setback on the future 300 north. Did that?
300 east.
I mean, that
300
wasn't-
east. Yep.
They're 300 east. That wasn't put into that motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve 300 east setbacks.
Per the planning commission,
Yep.
Yeah.
For the planning commission.
I'll second that.
Okay, the motion's been made and been seconded. Begin the voting with Councilman Severie,
Yes.
Councilman Turner,
Yes.
Councilwoman Stoker,
Number 3.
Councilman
Side.
Swanson, excuse me, Councilwoman Stoker,
Yes.
Councilman Swanson,
Yes.
Councilman Barker.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thanks for keeping us on track.
Sorry.
Okay, item 10, discussion or action to consider amending the Village at Prominence Point Development Agreement to add the automatic car wash as an allowed use.
And Mayor, you have.
Presenter be Rob Scott.
We have the amendment agreement that memorializes your previous discussion or decision. So the development agreement is before you for your consideration.
Mayor, I move we,
I have a question
Oh.
before you do that, please.
All right.
Last week when we were discussing the, how it affected the form-based code, what was decided, I had to step out with Representative Anderson at that time, so I didn't hear what the discussion was.
yes, it did.
Well, I knew that, but what was the discussion after that? Nothing?
Not really.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Get a motion and a second.
Well, I got to make a motion. I move that we approve the amending of the Village Prominent Point Development Agreement to add the automatic car wash as previously discussed in previous council meetings as an allowed use.
Have a second?
I second it.
Second by Councilman Severin. Any more discussion or questions? We begin the voting with Councilman Turner,
Yes.
Councilwoman Stoker,
Yes.
Councilman Swanson,
Yes. Yes.
Councilman Barker,
Yes.
Councilman Severin.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
So council, that's agreement A22, just for record.
No, I didn't know there was an agreement, sorry. Agreement number 822. See, that's why Phil does all the, from now on, Phil does them.
Okay, the next item of discussion and action to consider an ordinance allowing temporary land regulation along Washington Boulevard and 2700 North until City Council implements form-based code. Presenter will be Jonathan Call, City Administrator and Attorney.
So, council, this is brought back at your request as we were discussing the form-based code and the potential for additional applications to come in that might undermine the ability of the form-based code. Mr. Wynn mentioned today that the area he is most concerned about is the marketplace area, which is the area behind Walgreens and America First heading to the west. That's also the area that we're seeing the most activity happen right now, where there's likely to be development that wouldn't work with form-based code. So if the council was more comfortable restricting it to that area, we could do that. We would anticipate in all the rest of the area that is under this temporary land use regulation, that there won't be a commercial application coming in the near future. Usually developers start talking to us 6 months before they put an application in. Some don't, but typically that's what we see. And so if you wanted to modify the area that it would go in, that's fine, at least from a staff perspective. Although I do think that the most important area is the marketplace area. And then essentially what this regulation does is it adopts the form-based code as it is for 6 months. And if this council doesn't put in a new form-based code or a revised plan, then it reverts back to the original zoning. And it's for all properties that are within 200 feet of Washington Boulevard or 300 feet of 2700 or 2550. So it's meant to kind of cover that block where the marketplace is, as well as anything that would be within proximity to Washington Boulevard. Like I said, I don't know of any pending applications or any developers who are looking at anything on Washington that wouldn't work for us. So, but I think as Mr. Wynn identified, form-based codes are not easy animals to tackle. We've been working on it with the Planning Commission for 2 years now. If you look at from when we started writing it and discussing it with them to now, and it doesn't work for all cities, and so there is a greater discussion to have in these coming months, assuming this regulation's imposed, or even if not, of exactly what the council envisions that area looking. And we've talked about doing open houses and things, and I think this temporary land use regulation just helps us kind of give it a chance to put the brakes on, so we don't. If we were to add 2 more commercial developments in the piece behind America First that weren't form-based code oriented, then there would be no reason to do the form-based code there. So that's kind of the concern. Any questions about that, or temporary land use regulations are not used often and shouldn't be. In fact, the state statute restricts them to special circumstances when there's a real pressing need. And so that's why we don't use them that often. Yeah.
Councilman Swanson?
If during the 6 months that this temporary land use regulation exists, we decide obviously if we decide to adopt form-based code, we could pass that, and that would supersede this. What if we choose to abandon form-based code? Could we then end this temporary regulation early?
Yeah, so it would just be another ordinance just like this, where you would officially drop the temporary land use regulation and revert to the other code as it exists.
So this kind of gives us 6 months of breathing room to decide what we're going to do form-based code.
That's the maximum amount of time.
Right.
Yeah.
Also allows the developer to come in and start looking at properties and
Right.
what they got to do in that area, correct?
Yeah.
So if you, can you do the market, what do you call it, Market Street or the marketplace?
Yeah, the marketplace.
Do the form base as outlined,
Do this.
and then not the other?
Yeah, you could word it that way.
On the commercial
Well,
side of it,
this
the 20?
would apply, John, what were the parameters again? 300 feet?
So it's 200 feet within Washington Boulevard in the C2 and CP2 zones, and as well as 200 feet of 2000 North. So that's where the cannery is.
Right.
And then it's 300 feet of 2700 North and 300 feet of 2550 North. So that 300 feet parameter is to encompass what we call the marketplace area. And then the rest of it is to essentially from 2600 down to 1700 North.
Right. And it's a temporary.
Yes.
Temporary.
Yep.
Any more questions or discussion?
It says here, public comments considered. I'd be willing to,
Any public comments regarding this
if there are any.
particular item?
Julie Anderson, 940 East, 2600 North. So my comment is, as you talk about this, you talk about this area by the marketplace, which I'm assuming is by Lee's and all that. So presented to the Planning Commission was an O'Reilly Auto Store, which does not have to follow the land form-based code. But the problem is it affects the rest of the area. So you're kind of saying, okay, well, we're going to say O'Reilly's is fine, but then these new restaurants, he said he's talking with 2 restaurants. So now he's got the regular code that's there, and anybody else that comes in has to comply. And I'm not quite sure what we're trying to do with the form-based code. I'm not sure what our end result is. And so I have some concerns with doing a temporary thing that says, well, we're going to do this form-based code anyway, because you restrict. It's just, I don't even know how to say it. I'm sorry. I've been tending a 2-year-old all day, so my brain is pretty fried. And so I just feel like if you're referring to the marketplace area, you've already got an O'Reilly coming in. And the gentleman, I will say, who is dealing with the O'Reilly was very obliging to deal with colors that we have placed in this area and stuff. He was very nice to work with, and I appreciated his comments. But it just seems like we're trying to put that in with an O'Reilly that is not under the form-based code. Does that make sense? Because it does not to me. I apologize. But it seems like he has quite a, his is right on the frontage there. And then you're going to say everything else comes under the form-based code, which is totally different from O'Reilly's. And he's not having to come in under that form-based code. And I'm going to sit down because I'm done.
Thank you for your comments.
I drove by 3 O'Reillys today in the course of my work, new ones, down
How were they?
Clinton. They were beautiful. Stone corners. Looking at them, they would come very close to fitting within our form-based code. They weren't your typical, what we think of.
The design he has is bright red and green colors, which I'm not allowed to wear. They're muted.
Well, these that I saw today, they stuck out to me because they were, not your typical. The first one I saw, I was surprised that it was an O'Reilly's because it wasn't a bad looking building. So I don't think it would stick out as much as we might think.
Kevin Burns, 795 East, 1925 North. We've talked a lot about form-based code over the last couple months, and I've tried to pay more attention to those types of things as I move around the community and see, you know, if it would fit in North Ogden and try to imagine that, and I can't. And it feels to me like we're trying to pound a square peg into a round hole with form-based code, and it's not what we build in Utah, and it just doesn't seem like it fits. We have a lot of discussion about it, and it sounds to me like we're going to end up having the same conversation with Marketplace that we just had with the patio homes or whatever they are down at Prominence in a year. We'll be back having the same conversation again. Please get it right, and that's all I have for this subject. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment. Okay, council. Are we looking for a motion on this one?
Yep.
Wasn't the part of the form-based code, and didn't we have open houses on this as to what the residents wanted, and to say what we wanted our city to look like, not for the developers to come in and tell us what they were going to do? That was the reasoning of some of this got started.
Yeah, that is a big piece of it, and Kevin's right. It works in some places here in Utah, and other places it doesn't. There are some communities here along the Wasatch Front that have used form-based code to a raging success, and others it hasn't. And because we haven't made that decision whether we're going to adopt form-based or if we're going to abandon it, that's the only reason I'm in favor of this temporary, is so that we're still in control during that 6 months, and then we make that decision which direction we're going to go.
Well, I'm still not sure if I'm sold on form-based code. I just, growing up here, it seems like it's Brigham City. It seems like it's Ogden when you tear down a bunch of stuff and then rebuild it. It seems like it'd cost us a lot more money to tear down to rebuild, but...
What would we be tearing down?
Well, everything around there's not form-based code.
No, yeah, you're right about that. Yeah.
So if we wanted it to fit with everything else, we'd be tearing... I don't know. I'm just not sold on. It's a great idea if you were starting fresh in Farmington Center or whatever that place is called. But.
Well, this is why that 6 months gives us an opportunity to evaluate it.
Well, it's saying new development has to follow form-based code.
Unless we decide to make it different.
Yeah.
So do I have a motion on this item?
I think we're still noodling. Carl, I love that word.
Trademark that word. Or copyright it, whatever it's called.
I've already noodled it.
Oh. Isn't that catching catfish by hand, noodling?
I don't know.
I believe it is, right?
Yep.
I put it down and noodled it.
Blake, what are you thinking?
Well, for the sake of our discussion tonight, considering the time, there's aspects of form-based code that I really, really like, and there's also the rational side of it that I do see where it could impact bringing some companies, some businesses into North Ogden because of the expense. I like that those who do make a commitment to come into North Ogden know very quickly what they can build. It's very easy for them. But I don't know kind of in the spirit of Ryan Barker. I don't know if North Ogden is a form-based code community, but I believe that there needs to be some standards that make the development process a little easier. But I don't know if North Ogden's not the easiest place to move into for businesses anyway. And so for us to throw an extra expense is probably not the most productive thing. So I like that this gives us an additional 6 months to evaluate it.
Well, what's the ordinance number?
2018-33.
I'll move that we approve ordinance 2018-33 with the approving the temporary land use regulation as discussed.
It's been moved by Councilman Swanson to approve 2018-33 with the temporary land use regulation along Washington Boulevard. Have a second?
Second.
And second by Councilman Turner. Begin the voting with Councilwoman Stoker.
Good question. I'm noodling. I like said, I like some of the things, but yeah, I guess with the temporary, it does give us a chance to look at it and then decide. So, yes.
Councilman Swanson?
Yes.
Councilman Barker?
I'm going to say no.
Councilman Severie?
Yes.
Councilman Turner?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Just out of curiosity, Rob, can I ask a question about form-based code? Would that be okay, Mayor?
Sure.
Did that originate with staff or did that originate with city council, that idea? The whole idea of form-based code, did that
Kind of a
originate
collaboration, wasn't it?
Well, I think that's
Planning Commission, council.
I think it was kind of what was talked about. We needed some type of a standard that everybody kind of knew, and form-based code was a way to have that standard. And I mean, you say you're not sold on form-based code. You're not necessarily sold on the form-based code that we have come up with for this, that the city's come up with. There's form-based code, use it all the time, all over the place.
Right.
But this just happens to be the form-based code we're discussing here. And there's some areas, as we've talked about, that do really great. Older areas, it works really good in older areas in some cities and stuff. So I think we just need to dial in exactly what we want on our form-based code. Randy Wynn has some good comments, but I think it can work here. But it's just we just got to get it right. So.
I think it primarily came out of all the work we were doing with Village at Prominence Point, with all of the development agreement, and not wanting to have to go through that process with every development that came into town.
Yeah, I was just curious.
If we could develop something along those lines, and it may or may not be correct or the right thing to do, but.
Okay, move on to the agenda. Item 12, discussion or action to consider amending the development agreement for the Cherry Springs Villas project located at approximately 100 East, 2700 North to allow for a 20-foot wide garage width. This will be presented by Rob Scott, our planning director.
And I had C- in art. I'm just sorry. When I was a kid.
You got that high?
I know, it's pretty bad, isn't it?
Mine was an F.
So Cherry Springs Villas, these buildings are fourplexes in essence, but they're all owner-occupied units and what have you. So as part of the design that we went through and the design process that we went through, the building envelopes were clearly identified as part of this. We did not review to the level of detail the widths of garages. So our double garages standard is you have to have 22 feet wide and 20 feet deep. What the applicant's plan, and they've done many of these plans, theirs is 20 feet wide and approximately 22 to 23 feet deep, depending on So I've talked to Gary Kerr, one of the building officials and what have you. So the double car garage doors are generally 16 feet. So you're still going to have 2 feet pretty much on either side. The thing that I feel should be considered with respect to this is that given the clientele that's here, the statistic that Dave gave us was that there's a little over a car and a half per unit and what have you. I think it's going to provide for this type of homeowner and that sufficient to be able to. I don't think this is setting a precedence by any means. If we don't approve this, it's really going to create havoc with potentially a whole redesign. And over 2 feet, I'm not really sure that's worth it. But
And council,
your decision.
So this developer, just for as a reminder, I believe this is their 16th or 17th project of similar size. So they've done 1,000 units or or more. And I believe Mr. Erickson is here. He could tell you why this works or doesn't. So, yeah.
It's been a long night, so I'll be as brief as you want to be. I appreciate, first, I'd like to compliment Ron on getting this on the agenda for tomorrow. We're really anxious to get started construction. It's been a long process to get everything to this point. We're really anxious to get going. This is actually, I think, our 18th project. We've sold over 1,700, or pushing 1,800 homes now, all with this exact same design. If we would have known about this issue in the beginning, but you can't catch everything, we would have requested it as part of our development agreement. We have built, like I said, well over 1,000 of these homes, all restricted to folks 55 plus. Our communities average 1.7 people per home and 1.3 cars per home. There's not too many trucks. That's why we actually extended the garage a few years back to get it so you could put a truck in with a trailer hitch on it. But we haven't run. I mean, there's been from time to time we've probably lost a buyer because they had too large vehicles, but it's such a rare event that it's something that just hasn't come up. Plus, we also have four models that are constructed right in the beginning of the project that if anybody had a question whether or not their cars could fit, they can see it in real life. So I'm asking to modify amend our development agreement to change the dimension. The square footage in the garage is actually, we meet the same square footage requirement as the city. It's just in a slightly different configuration, which has proven to be fine over the last 20 years. I can go on and on, but that's the basic. That's it.
I'm fine with it.
Are you doing this, Phil?
Questions or discussions?
You can make a motion there.
Seeing there's no questions, I would entertain a motion.
Go, Blake, go.
Go. Well, I move that we amend the development agreement for Cherry Springs Villas project to allow a 20-foot wide garage width.
Second.
The agreement number's A23.
Okay.
Yeah, don't mess it up like Carl did.
All right, let's go back and do that then. I move that we accept agreement A23 to amend the development agreement with Cherry Springs Villas project located approximately 100 East, 27 North to allow 20-foot wide garage width.
And I will second it again.
Okay, there's been a motion to consider amending the development agreement A23 to allow for a 20-foot wide garage width. It's been seconded by Councilman Turner.
Mayor, I want to make a substitute.
Okay.
No, you don't.
Just trying to line it up a little bit.
I'm stepping back.
You have a balancer?
That won't lighten it up. I'm telling you.
Any other questions or discussion? We'll begin the voting with Councilman Swanson,
Yes.
Councilman Barker,
Yes.
Councilman Severing,
Yes.
Councilman Turner,
Yes.
Councilwoman Stoker.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next item, discussion or action to reconsider resolution to decommission some of the city committees. Presented will be Jonathan Call, Administrator and Attorney.
So, council, this is another item that we discussed previously, and the council wanted to bring something back. As I was writing this resolution, one of the things I tried to make clear in the whereas was that this decommissioning that's happening is not doing anything with the records of the committees. It's still leaving those records in the official files of the city. And then at some point in time, the city does have the option of giving those to the state archives where they're kept indefinitely, but historically we haven't done that. So the purpose of that discussion was just to make it clear that it's not that there are records being chucked or anything like that. It's just that there won't be a need to keep those committees active on the state website.
Those minutes are.
Yeah, so the minutes for all those official city council committees have to be kept forever, which is why they either are kept with the city offices or at the state archives. And the state will take them after a certain time frame. But anyways, so they stay around. The other thing, it's actually quite common in resolutions and ordinances for Section 1 to eliminate language or eliminate things, and then Section 2 to enact things. So it's not uncommon for the city council to essentially, in this resolution, eliminate all the committees and then reestablish the new ones, or reestablish some. I don't disagree that there might be a valid argument that the Barker Park Committee had finished everything it was supposed to and was therefore already disbanded, much like many of these other committees. But in the discussion we had a couple weeks ago, the council made it clear that they wanted this committee to remain active, or to essentially be brought back until the park is completed. And so that's why it was included down here as a committee that is essentially reformed or a reconstituted type of a thing. With this resolution, I imagine that what we'll do is to just, there again, keep the slate clean, come back to the council with the recommendation for the individuals on these committees. There's a few seats on the Economic Development Committee that have gone vacant. And then the General Plan Steering Committee, there's nobody on that committee, but we need to put people on that so we can do our moderate income housing plan as part of our general plan. And then the same thing with the Barker Park Committee. It would be a good idea to re-invite individuals that the council wanted to be on that committee. So that's the recommendation from the staff on this resolution.
So,
Councilman Turner.
So when I read this, it said Barker Park Committee, and not that that's not necessary, but I thought we kind of talked about making it more of a general committee, like an arts and recreation committee or something to that effect. I thought that's what we had talked about. That was in my head. Maybe I just talked about it in my head when I was noodling. But
I think that's going to be an additional committee.
Or are we talking about making that as an additional committee? Okay, so maybe I was a little confused there. And then we had talked about having people apply to be on committees versus appointing. Is that how we're going to still do these new committees? Or is that something we need to discuss? Because we talked about that, and I know with there was committees in the past where people would apply to be on them. So is that how we want to handle that too, moving forward?
We like the application process because there's a buy-off there that makes a difference.
So we could approach residents and say, hey, we'd love to have you on the committee. Why don't you put in an application? Not that the application is going to be rejected, it just makes them understand that they're making a commitment. Is that kind of the way I understood it too? Do we need to have something in this saying that they will be apply for or not? John?
So the way that our current code, well, the current state code says, is the mayor is the one who appoints individuals to those committees with the advice and consent of the council. And so whatever language you think the mayor needs for direction, it would be appropriate to put in. Or if you just want to give him those instructions, whatever the council feels is appropriate.
Yeah.
Yes.
For me, it would be helpful if we change slightly the Barker Park Committee name to differentiate from the work that was done previously by the Barker Park Committee and that has ended, and the work, maybe Barker Park Completion Committee or something along those lines, to designate the actual work that committee would be working towards. We have a great design for the park. I don't think the design piece of it is something that'll be revisited in any kind of detail, to change. I see this more as a Barker Park Completion Committee. My suggestion would be that we add that or something similar to the name, just to differentiate in minutes and other records that are kept from the previous Barker Park Committee.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Any other questions or discussion?
So I've changed that to say completion committee.
Does that mean you have to put Barker Park Committee in the top, section 1?
It would not be a bad idea.
John, is that phrase any other committee to general? Should that just be eliminated?
I don't think so, but
I think that kind of blankets if there's something that got set up that we don't.
Well, could you say any other committee not specified in section 2? Is that too much?
I don't think that's too much. I mean,
I like that. Isn't that what Aaron suggested? Huh? Was that what Aaron suggested?
and I do still think that the way it typically works is section 1 happens and then section 2 happens. That's the way the state handles their stuff. Sorry, I wonder if our battery's gone dead on our keyboard because it's not letting me.
Been here for so long.
There we go.
Maybe the typer went dead.
Push on the key.
It's not recognizing your fingers.
Yeah. Like that?
Something like that.
Sure.
Any other additions or questions?
So wait, and that wasn't, the Parks and Trails Committee is a 501c3, so it doesn't need to be on this, right? No. Okay.
Well, so
yeah, that's right. And the Museum Committee is 501c3, and those are all independent. Okay.
So the trouble is they still show up on our state website as being an active city committee. And so we're just trying to clarify so that we can have the state folks remove all these committees that haven't been used forever. Okay. Because the parks became its own independent, or the Parks and Trails is its own independent, just like the museum is its own independent group now.
Okay.
In fact, today I had a member of the Parks and Trails Committee call me because a member of their committee thought we were getting rid of them. So I told them this didn't affect them because they were a 501c3. They're their own committee.
Okay.
We have a resolution number?
12-2018.
Mayor, I'd move that we approve Ryan, you want to give it a chance?
Sure. Why not?
My jaw just quit working.
Decommission.
I'll move that we approve Resolution 12-2018, decommissioning certain city committees as indicated and continuing or establishing the 3 committees as indicated.
So we have a motion to consider a resolution to decommission some of the city committees and reestablish others on 12-2018. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been seconded. Any other discussion or questions? We'll begin the voting with Councilman Barker,
Yes.
Councilman Severie,
Yes.
Councilman Turner,
Yes.
Councilwoman Stoker,
Yes.
Councilman Swenson.
Yes.
Swanson?
Swanson too.
Swenson.
I kind of like the other one.
I know they make better ice cream.
Motion passes. Thank you. Item 14, discussion or action to consider the ordinance for 2019 meeting schedule for City Council and Planning Commission. Our presenter will be Annette Spenlove, our City Recorder and HR Director.
Mayor and Council, the Utah Code 52-4-202 requires you to set your meeting schedule every year, and then we notice it in the newspaper. And this is just what you guys have passed in the last few months when you changed your meeting schedule. We just took the same schedule and the Planning Commission's schedule. So this is just housekeeping, really, what we have to do. And you pass it by ordinance.
It's 2018-34.
Yes.
Your Santa jacket.
What's that?
You go, Santa jacket.
Mayor, I'd move that we approve ordinance 2018-34, setting the time, establishing a time and place for holding regular meetings for the 2019 calendar year.
Okay, we had a motion to approve ordinance number 2018-34, which is the meeting schedule for 2019 for City Council and Planning Commission. Have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Councilman Turner.
Can I make one comment, discussion-wise? Is the Utah Code ever going to update it so we don't have to post it in the newspaper?
If you push your state legislature.
I'm just curious, because I wonder how many people read the newspaper.
Well, we, as city recorders, actually, last year presented this legislation, the newspaper noticing, but we didn't have as big a lobbyist as they did.
Oh.
They said we were trying not to be transparent, but they are going to bring it up again in a year.
I have no problem putting it there, it's just...
It's quite costly.
It is,
And
yeah.
I feel like the newspapers...
That's why the papers want to keep it.
Back the taxpayers to fund their newspapers.
Okay, we've had a motion and a second. Begin the voting with Councilman Severie.
Yes.
Councilman Turner.
Yes.
Councilwoman Stoker.
Yes.
Councilman Swanson.
Yes.
Councilman Barker.
Yes.
Motion passes. Meeting is now open for public comments.
Nope.
Stephanie Casey, 2444 Barker Parkway. With the discussion on the committees and dissolving most, except for the three, I have a couple of questions. In the city policy and procedures, under committees, number 6, all meetings of council committees shall provide notice in conformance with the Utah Open and Public Meetings Act, which says a meeting is open to the public. It also says written minutes and recordings shall be kept of all open meetings. I'm having trouble finding any minutes or information regarding the Amphitheater Design Committee. The committee is referenced in the October 17th, 2017 PowerPoint presentation for the amphitheater. It says the design committee has been hard at work and then lists the members. Again referenced in the minutes of that same meeting, a design committee meets weekly to discuss the project, and they have developed a rough site plan for the project. I would like to request the minutes for these meetings.
Council, I can answer that question. Committees, remember I always say, if you form a committee in council meeting and approve them, those committees, then those are the meetings that we have to do minutes and notices on. We have committees all over the place that we do not form, that the council does not create. And They are not required by law. I don't have the law right here.
I've got it right here. If you want to find that and give it to me. Yeah, I have the state code all right here.
Yeah,
I read through it today. I didn't find that anywhere.
I go through this all the time with the state recorders, and I'll get you the code. But
I would love it.
Formal meeting that a formal committee you've created.
So when what constitutes a formal committee created? One that's voted on in this meeting?
Council room, and you've approved those people on it, and the mayor's presented them to you, you've approved it, and voted on it.
So if it's a committee of that I don't know, like friends just wanted to get together and call themselves a committee, then that's what you're saying doesn't count. Okay.
Like the what was the one that Carol Campbell was over, and
I don't
we
know.
didn't make that a formal committee?
Oh, the Clean Air.
Yeah.
The Clean Air, and we
The what?
and remember, I said,
Clean
you
Air.
don't need to make this a.
I don't know.
You
Oh,
do
yeah.
not have to take minutes of those meetings, and you do not have to have notice. And I'll get that out to you first thing in the morning.
I would like it as well, please.
Okay, I'll stand it to you, Stephanie.
I'm going to give you my references right now where I read this, and I'm still going to look into that a little bit more because I'm not sure I agree with you. I'm not saying but I would really like to see those
And
minutes.
I need your email address.
Absolutely, I'll get that to you.
Are these from our?
That was what I was referencing when I spoke.
Brenda Ashdown, 193 East Pleasant View Drive. I have four little concerns. First of all, these chairs are awful. You can't move on them without sounding like you're passing air. They're terrible.
That's why I like them.
Oh.
That's terrible.
Form-based code. My concern is we already have some little strip malls in the city that we have a hard time keeping small businesses in. So that kind of concerns me. And obviously I don't understand all of form-based code, but the ones where we've got storefronts along Washington with offices or apartment on top, they seem like they're fairly small stores, and I would agree with what Mr. Wynn was saying as far as them being boutique stores, and we seem to have trouble filling those little kind of stores anyway. I had four things, now I lost my train of thought. A concern that I have tonight, when you were talking about the subdivision and the variances that they want, the Cherry Springs and the variances that they want, it seems, and I agree that there needs to be a set. I don't necessarily agree that it's form-based code, or at least not the part of it that I understand. But it seems to me like with all of these changes that you're making, especially with the subdivision prominence point, you're opening yourselves up to every time somebody wants to come in and develop something, they're going to get permission, then they're going to come back to you and say, oh, but I don't want this many feet in my front yard, or I don't want this size of a garage. Now, whether it was a lack of planning or understanding the blueprints, I don't have an answer. That's why you guys are there, but it needs to be looked at a little further. I agree very much with what Cheryl said as far as we got to look at how we're setting this up and if we're going to be able to continue it through, or is your intent to have every subdivision looked at individually? With what you passed tonight as far as the Prominence Hill, you had a whole subdivision that had requirements. Now you have 4 houses that have a different requirement than the rest of the subdivision. You've changed the variance, the property background on what you acquire from other places like that. I would think it's going to be very confusing for someone to come in and want to either build a subdivision or a home somewhere, because who knows what ordinances you guys are going to follow. And I can't remember number 4. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Julie Anderson, 940 East, 2600 North. I just need one clarification on the last thing you did on your meeting schedule. It doesn't actually say what day the Planning Commission meets.
That's underneath it.
Oh, it did?
If you scroll down further.
Oh, okay, okay. It's just that's all we could see on the thing, and so I'm like, wait, okay. Thank you. That's all
all
I
right.
wanted clarifying. Thank you.
Thank
Sound
you.
like- Julie, you sound like you've been with 2-year-olds today.
You know, that was another comment. Kevin Burns, 795 East, 1925 North. I've got nothing, except this has been a wonderful last meeting of the year. I'd like to send you all off with a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Prepare for 2019, because it's going to be interesting, isn't it? We've got a big year in front of us with a full plate already sitting in front of us to when we hit the ground in January. So enjoy your holidays. Thank you very much for your work.
Thank you for your comments. Easy does it, Sean.
It takes a few minutes. Sean Casey, 2444 Barker Parkway. I'll condense this story. I'm in the Ruby Mountains with my grandpa, Bert Smith. I'm 10. We're pulling cows out of the high elevation. The Rubies are steep, Swiss Alps in the U.S. I literally watched him drive his horse into the ground. Killed it right in front of me. And I'm freaking out, like, whoa, this is crazy. Grandpa's rolling down the hill, horse is rolling down the hill. I go down to him. He proceeds to beat the hell out of that horse. And it jumped up after about 2 minutes of the most foul language you have ever heard, and amazingly brutal actions from a human being. So he beat a horse back to life. So the expression, it's lost in the generation below me. You can't beat a dead horse, or why beat a dead horse? I want you to think on that particular term. If Chris Heiner would have used that phrase as opposed to the phrase he chose, I think it would have gone totally different. I don't think Chris was trying to be offensive. He came prepared. He had a lot of good information about roads and speeds, and I would hate to have his comments lost because he was offensive. Because I don't get him as an offensive individual. So anyway, that was something I noticed. Tolerance goes both ways, and I think we should have thicker skin. And I think we should tolerate more. I think it's a good dialogue is good, and division and different ideas are helpful. The only way we will know what is right or what's a good path is through disagreement. All right, and then the last point. If you dissolve the Arts and Amphitheater Committee, you can pretty much kiss our grant goodbye from Weber Ramp. It's a qualification to even apply for that major grant that we're going to apply for in January. So reopen that committee. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Seeing no other comments, we'll move to the next item as council, mayor, staff comments. Councilman Turner?
Nothing other than Merry Christmas to everybody.
Councilman,
What's that?
My husband's Jewish.
Well, happy Hanukkah. Happy whatever you want to celebrate.
Councilman Severy?
Happy Hanukkah to your husband. Pardon me?
It's over.
Oh, I was just trying to be kind. I don't have anything.
Okay, Councilman Barker?
Nothing except the UDOT study's still only a study. We haven't made up any decision.
Correct. Yeah.
Correct. Councilman Swanson?
The striping at 2550 in Washington was done today.
Mhm.
The curve has been changed, the striping's been changed, so now the left turn is left turn only, and right turn and straight are in the same lane as is generally found throughout the United States. So we're back to being a little more organized there, and grateful for the work that got done there. That's it.
Thank you. Councilwoman Stoker?
I find the stop sign very interesting on 2600 North. I'm wondering, it'll be interesting to see what happens. How many fender benders we're going to get, and how many are, I mean, those bikers run that stop sign heading northbound anyway. Now they have, I'm just like, okay. I'm waiting to see what happens. But other than that, I have no comments.
Thank you. I do wish a Merry Christmas to you all. Thank you for your participation this evening, and we'll see you after New Year's.
John.
Okay, John?
Nothing.
Annette?
Dave?
Dave? Evan? Okay, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a motion to adjourn. Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?